over the Israel-Hamas war and a controversy over its selection of a class valedictorian. This week, the university has been rocked by turmoil by pro-Palestinian protesters, resulting in the arrest of more than 90 people. And also today, New York's highest court overturned Harvey Weinstein's 2020 conviction on felony sex crime charges, a stunning reversal in the foundational case of the Me Too era. In a 4-3 decision, the New York Court of Appeals found that the trial judge who presided over Weinstein's case had made a crucial mistake, allowing prosecutors to call as witnesses a series of women who said Weinstein had assaulted them, but whose accusations were not part of the charges against him. And although Donald Trump's claim of near absolute immunity was seen as a long shot intended primarily to slow the proceedings brought by special counsel Jack Smith involving his efforts to subvert the 2020 election results, several members of the Republican-appointed majority on the U.S. Supreme Court today seem to indicate that some immunity was needed. Some of those conservative justices on the court expressed worry about the long-term consequences of leaving future former presidents open to prosecution for what they call their official acts. And an Arizona grand jury on yesterday indicted 7 attorneys or aides affiliated with Donald Trump's 2020 presidential campaign, as well as 11 Arizona Republicans on felony charges related to their alleged efforts to subvert Joe Biden's 2020 victory in the state. Now, those indicted include former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, attorneys Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, John Eastman, and Christina Bobb. Also, some of Trump's top campaign advisors and former campaign aides, including Mike Roman, were also indicted. They are all accused of allegedly aiding an unsuccessful strategy to award the state's electoral votes to Donald Trump instead of Joe Biden. Donald Trump is listed as an unindicted co-conspirator in the Arizona grand jury indictment. And clashes between pro-Palestinian student protesters and police continue to spread at colleges across the country today, with fresh arrests at Emerson College, University of Southern California, and the University of Texas at Austin, and reports of new encampments being set up at Princeton University, Northwestern University, and Columbia University, where many of the protests started what has become the nationwide college protest. Pro-Palestinian protests have rocked dozens of universities, including the California State Polytech at Humboldt. University officials have aggressively cracked down on campus demonstrations against the Israel-Gaza war and have arrested hundreds of students on college campuses. GOP House leader Mike Johnson and his Republican colleagues they were met with boos, laughs, and pro-Palestinian chants after they parachuted into Columbia University in New York City. Johnson and a group of GOP lawmakers landed on campus and attempted to give a speech on the steps on the steps in the yard of the campus, but a crowd of students swelled as Johnson and his colleagues began speaking. These students were laughing and yelling that they couldn't hear the congressman and his colleagues. The students also booed the speaker and chanted, including "Free Palestine, Stop the Genocide," and "From the River to the Sea," a phrase that some say constitutes anti-Semitic speech. Others were even yelling, "Get off our campus, go back to Louisiana, Mike." Well, the Arizona House voted yesterday to repeal a Civil War era ban on nearly all abortions that was set to take effect as early as June of this year. The measure now heads to the state Senate, which could grant final passage next week. This 1864 abortion law took effect briefly after Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, but was soon blocked by the courts. It was later revived by the state's highest court on April 9th, inciting a national uproar and political panic among Republicans who worry that the ban will hurt their chances of winning elections this year, including the presidential contest. And the Tennessee legislature passed a bill this week that would allow teachers, yes, teachers, and school staffers to carry concealed handguns in schools. Now, this is one of the most divisive steps taken by Republican leaders in the year since 6 people were killed by a shooter at a Nashville school. The House approved the measure as protesters shouted objections, nearly drowning out the proceedings with chants of "not one more kid." At least one person was kicked out of the gallery by House Speaker Cameron Sexton, a Republican. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. I want to give a big shout out to my colleagues, Dr. Nee Corte and Dominique DePrima. Both of those phenomenal hosts held it down for me this week as I traveled for some business. I'm glad to be back in the seat today. And again, thanks to Dominique and Dr. Nee for keeping you apprised of today's breaking and trending news. On my day back, I'm going to be joined by Jamar Brown, a former executive director of the Texas Democratic Party, and Ed Sanders, a political analyst. So Jamar is in Texas and Ed is in Los Angeles, and campuses in both of these states, California and Texas, are seeing their fair share of protesters. So they really get their take on what these universities are doing right and what they are doing wrong, and what we can expect to see as more protests erupt, particularly since we are in the season of graduation. And in hour two, you know what we do. We're going to go deep. We're going to dig behind those headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. And today has been a gigantic legal story day. Lots of court cases going on. Obviously, Donald Trump is back in that Manhattan courtroom. David Pecker, the president of the Inquirer, who has been testifying for 3 days about his catch and kill efforts to suppress stories, negative stories, that is, about Donald Trump in an effort to help him win the 2016 election. The defense team started its cross-examination of Mr. Pecker as the day was ending. He will be back on that witness stand tomorrow. So we're going to bring you the latest inside of Donald Trump's criminal business falsification of records trial that's happening in Manhattan. Also, today, the Supreme Court heard arguments about Donald Trump's sweeping claim that he is immune from all criminal prosecution for any and everything he's ever done in his life simply because he was the president. Some surprising questions asked today by the U.S. Supreme Court as that case was argued. And then the bombshell decision by a New York appeals court regarding Harvey Weinstein. Didn't see that coming. What does this decision by this court mean for the Me Too era and all of the victims who finally were finding their voices and speaking out against sexual assault and sexual harassment? I have my expert legal eagles here in hour two. They're going to help break down all of this legal news. We're going to take you to law school. This is my Law School 101 hour, because if you're going to be an informed voter in 2024, and I hope that all of my viewers and listeners are, you're going to need to understand what's happening in these legal cases. So make sure you stick around for hour two. But before I bring on my guest, I want to give a big shout out to Reggie Bush. Now, y'all know I'm not a big sports fan. Don't talk about sports often on this show. But the case involving Reggie Bush, this one-time University of Southern California football star, will be reunited with his Heisman Trophy. He was stripped of his trophy after he was accused of taking some benefits from agents for him and his family when he was still a student at USC. The Trojans running back was named college football's best player in 2005, winning the vote over star quarterbacks such as folks like Texas's Vince Young. Bush's teammates and others who also were in the competition that year, but it was Reggie Bush who came out victorious. But 5 years later, that incredible honor, one of the highest honors for a college football star, was taken away. Again, allegations that he and his family received some benefits from an agent while he was still a student athlete. USC surrendered the replica of the trophy it had displayed on campus, and Bush was no longer invited even to Heisman Trophy ceremonies. But all of that is ending, and Reggie Bush is now being touted for the great college athlete that he was. He's being given his trophy back. He's going to be invited back into the Heisman Trophy Club with other winners of that trophy. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because I have for years been in favor of college athletes being able to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. And just recently, that happened. College students were no longer barred from participating in the economic decisions or the economics of these universities as it relates to their prowess, their talents, their skills. So we know great players like Reggie Bush make universities like USC millions, if not billions of dollars. Well, collectively, these teams make these universities so much money. And for years, these students, some of them, many of them from poor Black neighborhoods, their parents were poor. They couldn't even pay their rent. Many of them didn't have transportation. And they were really struggling financially while these schools got richer and richer and richer. So they would use the name, image, and likeness of these student athletes to grow their coffers, to make their schools bigger, to increase their endowments, to pay their coaches some outrageous sums of money. But here you had these athletes, many of whom never graduated, many of whom never ended up in the pros, either pro basketball, pro football. And so their sports career would essentially end. They would have no diploma, so they weren't highly employable, and they would have nothing to show for it, except in a lot of cases, a whole lot of injuries. So they put their bodies at risk. They suffered injuries, and they may have had some glory days being on television, playing in some bowl games, but they weren't benefiting economically. So Reggie Bush denied these allegations, but even if he did, and the reason that they're reuniting him with the trophy is because now there's a recognition in this country that these athletes should be able to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness in the way that these universities have done for decades. And it made no sense for Reggie Bush to be stripped of his trophy for something now that athletes are, routinely allowed to do, which is to have an agent and to be in commercials and to commercialize their own name and to monetize their own merchandise and things associated with their talent. So kudos to you, Reggie Bush. I'm so glad to see you getting your Heisman trophy back. You deserved it then, you deserve it now. And kudos to those athletes that paved the way so that student athletes didn't have to suffer economically and financially while these big universities got bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's why I'm talking about sports today, because I love a Cinderella story. I love a story with a happy ending. And I love this story because I love to see all Black folks win, and Reggie Bush is winning. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's time for California Community College's Black Student Success Week. This week-long event, held April 22nd through the 26th, is an opportunity to focus on innovative approaches to ensuring Black and African American students succeed in their educational pursuits. Black Student Success Week 2024, building a better future together. The urgency is now. For more information, visit blackstudentsuccess.com. That's blkstudentsuccess.com.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth. And if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate hikes are expected. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges on your tax debt daily. So if you owe the IRS today, you will owe even more tomorrow. And it doesn't stop until you get right with the IRS. The good news is getting right can start with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. In fact, the experts at Optima Tax have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertiri Plessy. Nefertiri felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this hour, we are tracking today's breaking and trending news with my contributors. Ed Sanders is here with me today, and I think Jamar Brown's going to join us a little later in this hour. Okay, Ed, what a time, what a time, what a time. I have on my USC. I'm not a Trojan, but in light of what's happening at the campus that's 10 miles from me, and I don't know, probably 10 miles from you, and I know at one point your wife was working over there, I believe. But that university is in turmoil, announcing that it has canceled its main stage graduation. I can imagine, as a mother of two daughters in college, that must have parents furious, probably demanding their tuition back. We're probably going to see a barrage of lawsuits filed by parents and students. What do you make of how USC and other universities across this country are handling these protests?
Yeah, I mean, and full disclosure, my wife is an employee of the university. I mean, look, the issue in the Middle East is going to be, and we've spoken about this before, it's going to be one of the determining issues in this political election. And no matter where you land on it, what we know about it is it engenders a lot of emotion, and a lot of energy, and you're seeing it in the measure of protests, counter protests, and even at the university this week, you're looking at sort of the series of actions that, as you laid out in your opening, the cancellation of some of the commencement exercises, and you're seeing some very real impact. You mentioned it. I am aware of it. I have friends that have students that are due to graduate in a couple weeks, and it's really an unfair sort of set of circumstances where after 4 years of and all the tuition that's paid, and the tears, the late night, even as a parent just getting a child through college, you want a commencement exercise that validates all of the sacrifice that a family goes through, and so this is unfortunate.
Yeah, they talked about the security threats. So let's back up a minute, because we know one of the things that USC did last week ago or so was to cancel the valedictorian, who happens to be a Muslim woman. I think she's a bioengineer major or something. She had 3.9, 3.8 GPA. They canceled her speech, they said, for security reasons. A lot of people thought that was a fabricated story, that they were just trying to avoid controversy. So a lot of the protests that we've seen recently have been around the cancellation of this valedictorian's speech. And now the complete graduation. I don't know. What do you make of how these? And if you don't talk about USC, it's okay because your wife works there. We don't want to get her fired, because this is such a dangerous period. Whatever you say about these organizations, let's talk about Columbia, where my kids are, where a lot of these protests began, and we had that split screen. The president of Columbia testifying before that GOP Education Committee, trying to appease them, making statements and literally firing a professor during her testimony. A professor said he didn't even know he was being fired. And the split screen was students protesting her or protesting the policies of the university while she's trying to appease the GOP. And now the GOP, Mike Johnson, takes a crew over to the campus. And the first thing the GOP lawmakers say is this president needs to resign. So what good did that do her to go there and try to appease them? Because they now are coming for her head. The students want her to resign. The GOP lawmakers who she was trying to curry favor with, they want her to resign. And we got this image of police actually arresting, not just at USC and other campuses, Boston, Emory College in Boston, but Columbia. My daughter, one of my daughters in law school, actually went down to the jail to help to provide some pro bono. She's not a barred attorney yet, but a professor. She was helping a professor, and other students were helping them, know what their legal rights are. So what are these college professors getting wrong about this? Because it doesn't seem like any of them are handling it in the best way.
Well, I mean, look, I think one way to look at it is to pull back and look at 2024 versus in sort of the historical context. One thing I would say about the conflict, and I've described it this way, where it's really one of the first conflicts that you've gotten in real time on social media, and you saw a reaction to some of the content and video that was coming out of Palestine and Gaza Strip and the violence and the aftermath there. This was one of the first times you've seen that, what I mean? People would wake up and get it in real time. And I say that because when you think about universities and the history of universities in the United States, they've always been these forums of discourse around American conflicts, whether it was the Vietnam War, the Korean War. You would go to a campus and you could have these conversations and you could protest, you could say, and it's part of the American ethos, right? It's part of, just sort of the American culture that we support that sort of challenge to, the status quo or the conventional thinking, or even if you want to support the status quo or conventional thinking. But the universities were always sort of safe places where you could express yourself. And I think in 2024, what you're seeing is that, there are some serious ramifications to expressing yourself. There are, and there, and you're just seeing it play out in very real time. I don't know if it's going to be just specific to this particular issue as we go forward. In coming years, there may be other issues that rise, and you see the sort of action that universities are taking and that the politicians and the public are taking. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, one thing that's, I think, different now is we have this targeted attack on what they call these elite universities by the Republican Party. They want these university presidents to be fired. They want to change the curriculum. They believe that these universities are incubators for what they call, woke thinking. And so to the extent they can humiliate or bring these presidents to their knees and bring these universities to their knees, that's clearly what's happening. So you have this political tug of war happening at the same time. You have this really important issue for students. And you're right. I mean, where else should students? This is the place. A campus should be the place where students get to express themselves, whether they are, pro-Palestinian or they're pro-Israel, whatever side they are on. It should be a safe space for them to experiment and to protest. But that's not the case now when you have folks like Mike Johnson going to the campus, calling for the resignation of the president. And then you have some GOP lawmakers, Ed, saying, send in the National Guard. If these presidents can't get these kids under control, I don't know if they're doing sick dogs on them, I mean, are we going to see images from the 1960s? Now, they didn't send in the National Guard for the insurrectionists that stormed the Capitol. We didn't see any National Guards, immediately going in to quell that, but yet they want to send in the National Guard on these students?
Well, yeah, I think what you lay out is one of the more alarming elements here, right? And I mean, we've seen the far right, go on a bend in their quest for social issues. Most of their campaign literature and issues that they raise are always dealing with some sort of social crisis, and some sort of exclusionary policy. But we've seen the rewriting of history, whether it's Ron DeSantis in Florida, efforts in Texas, the critical race theory debate that gets them so engendered and hopped up. They use this as sort of a plank of their social war. And to your point, the war on wokeness. I think what's alarming is when it starts to turn violent, and you've seen no shortage of lawmakers and voices on the right really threaten to use institutional apparatus like police and National Guard to inflict violence on those that are protesting.
And we should remember, I mean, obviously there are professional activists and agitators that just go from city to city agitating. But for the most part, and my daughter told me on Columbus's campus, a lot of the students are literally, she said, sitting in these tents doing their homework. They're sitting in the tent, like playing games, board games. These are not violent, folks who are trying to tear the school down. They're just trying to make a point and exercise their First Amendment right. But I think these university presidents are feeling so much pressure from the GOP. They've got to be tough. That's the operative word here. They've got to get tough with these students. And you have these lawmakers saying, clear the campuses. And if you need to bring in the guard or the dogs or the guns or whatever. And that's really what's, I think, so disgusting about how this is being handled by some of these presidents. When we come forward, we're going to talk about guns in Tennessee in the classroom, really. And abortion is on the ballot and will be on the ballot because Republicans are grappling with what to do on abortion. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. The city of Minneapolis has reached a settlement with a man who witnessed the murder of George Floyd. Donna Williams was at the scene of the crime back in May of 2020 and claims Derek Chauvin and another former Minneapolis police officer caused him emotional damage that amounted to assault. Williams filed a civil lawsuit last May claiming the officer's actions constituted a threat of bodily harm. A Democratic congressman thinks Jews are not getting the same protection as Black people and other groups when it comes to hate speech. Florida Representative Jared Moskowitz told CNN Jews are not protected minority group, don't fit into the box, and are looked at differently. Kid Cudi is canceling his Insano tour after breaking his foot at the Coachella Music Festival this past weekend. In a post on X, the rapper said his injury is a lot more serious than he thought, and he was headed into surgery on Wednesday. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Over in Santa Monica, usual heavy traffic over an hour and a half is ahead on the 10 East between 20th Street and the 5-101 interchange. In Norwalk, drive carefully as the crash is currently on the right shoulder to the 605 North on the 105 East. And heavy traffic continues from the 405 over 45 minutes. A 3-car accident in South LA's 110 South at Vernon Avenue is on the right shoulder with a backup running heavy up to 15 minutes from the 10 Washington Boulevard interchange. In Glendora's 210 East at Sunflower Avenue, carpooling is blocked with an accident with a 55-minute traffic jam from Mountain Seco Street interchange.
NexGard Plus, Afoxalon or Moxidectin and Pyrantel chewable tablets, is the one you want for your dog's monthly protection. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Ask your veterinarian about NexGard Plus Chews today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
As you track the NFL draft over the next 2 days, here's a few things to keep on your radar. Last year, only one player from an HBCU school was selected by an NFL team. The New England Patriots chose Jackson State cornerback Isaiah Bolden in the 7th round, the final round of the draft. NFL teams will be on notice to see if their scouting departments did a better job this year of evaluating HBCU talent. NFL teams also have not drafted a quarterback from an HBCU school in 18 years. The Minnesota Vikings selected Alabama State quarterback Tavares Jackson in the 2nd round of the 2006 draft. Most of the 32 NFL teams have scouted North Carolina Central quarterback Davius Richard, the MVP of this year's Legacy Bowl, an all-star game for HBCU players. Draft analysts think Richard could be the first HBCU quarterback to hear his name called since Jackson. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had leaf filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
Getting connected has never been easier. Get free Wi-Fi at all LA County library locations, inside the library and outside in the parking lots. Visit your local library and get connected today.
Lowe's knows pros need the right tools for every job. That's why we sell the largest in-store selection of Klein tools anywhere. Find new items launching exclusively at Lowe's, like the self-leveling laser level for just $159.98. Plus, shop the Connect socket set for just $49.98. Get Klein tools in-store and online today, because Lowe's knows tools. Lowe's knows pros.
Psst. Hey, I have a secret. I use Secret Whole Body Deodorant because more than just my armpits stink.
Oh, can I use it where my bra rubs under my...
Oh, yeah.
And what about down there? You know, my...
Totally. 4 out of 5 gynecologists would recommend it. So I tried it, and now I get 72 hours of freshness from my pits to my...
Ooh, I love that it's a spray.
Me too. And it comes in sticks and creams too. Go get your Secret Whole Body Deodorant.
Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and Ed Sanders, the political analyst, is joining me in this hour, and we're talking about the breaking news. There's been a lot of news today, this entire week, Ed. Let's talk about this grand jury in Arizona indicting these fake electors and these individuals that were part of Trump's inner circle, including his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, his former attorney, Rudy Giuliani, other attorneys, including Jenna Ellis, John Eastman, and Christina Bobb. Now, some charges very similar to what we saw filed or indictments issued in Georgia in that RICO case involving Fonnie Willis. Obviously, Donald Trump, unindicted co-conspirator is clearly identified in this indictment. He's on trial. Donald Trump is on trial in Manhattan, and his crony group is being indicted in Arizona. What do you think this means politically, that so many people in Trump's orbit have been indicted?
Yeah, it's I think I worry about the timing, right? Like we're in the middle of a presidential, and so how half the country receives it versus the other half of the country receives the indictment news and processes is only going to split the country further. I do wish prosecutors and the investigators had moved with a little more speed to after the 2020 election to make this move. That indictment is also critical. I always sort of step back and ask myself, where is the nation's attorney general? Where is Merrick Garland on this? And are there federal charges that should have been brought, and those haven't been brought in sort of the speed that was necessary? That stated, everything that we heard in 2020 about these fake electors and this effort to really take the election, by deception. I'm glad that it's coming up in the middle of this election, because we have to be reminded of the lengths that these Republicans went to try to steal a presidential election. Again, I'm just frustrated. The response to that has been so muted and so delayed. These folks should have been put in jail right away.
You know what's so interesting? I'm thinking about Mark Meadows in particular, and all the people that are in Trump's orbit who have now been caught in this web, this web of criminality, of indictments. And even if they are acquitted through a trial process or charges are dropped, they all have to hire attorneys. They all suffer reputational damage. Many, I'm sure, have lost jobs and other career opportunities. Mark Meadows was in Congress, kind of minding his own business. He comes over as chief of staff, and now he's been indicted in 2 states, Georgia and Arizona, and he's highly affiliated or identified with this fake elector scheme. I just wonder if any of these folks, Rudy Giuliani, I mean, from civil cases now to criminal cases, his career, all the goodwill he built up in the country during 9/11 has been completely eviscerated. What are any of these people thinking? And we're not mind readers, but I can't imagine that this is the way they wanted their careers to end. And as they're being indicted, the guy who they were following off a cliff is now sitting in a Manhattan courtroom every day, except Wednesday when court's dark, mumbling and complaining, but yet being reduced to a common criminal. I mean, we just haven't seen anything like this. We're talking about some of the most prominent people in our government.
Yeah, and you asked the question, what's a big motivator? There are things out there that would motivate people to these lengths. Mark Meadows, and to your point about the cost of just defending yourself, an attorney, we've seen for Donald Trump, the ability to raise money because of the charges. His legal defense, he spends so much of his campaign money on legal defense. I don't know about Mark Meadows and whether he has a legal defense fund or how well funded it is. But the honest truth is, given some of the money that you've seen raised for some of these causes on the Republican side, I would not be surprised to see that his legal costs were covered through supporters and that sort of thing. I also wouldn't be surprised to know that he was actually far wealthier now than he was before he got involved with Donald Trump. That's also one of the things that you've seen out of that administration. It was a grifter's administration, probably the most corrupt administration since the Harding administration 100 years ago. you saw a complete fleecing of the country during those 4 years, and the extent of it, we really don't know. And that's really what's unfortunate here.
That's an excellent point. And the number one fleecer grifter is Jared Kushner, who ends up with these multi-billion-dollar fund, primarily through foreign dollars, relationships that he formed while in the White House, and leveraging his position as the first son. And creating these, for-profit opportunities for him and his family. And you're right. I mean, I'm not feeling any, sorrow or remorse for any of these people, but it's just mind-boggling to me, because even if you make a lot of money, being indicted, being a criminal, it still has to be incredibly stressful. Like I said, even if you win. And these lawyers in particular, I mean, they have their bar licenses at stake. They have their ability to practice their craft. Everything that they've worked for 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years has just gone down the tubes for a guy who has absolutely positively no concern for them. I think that's the thing that's just always so just mind-boggling.
You're an honorable person. This is why you are an honorable attorney, and I don't see that in the folks that we're talking about. I think there are amounts of money that those folks would gladly stand trial for. And the honest truth is, we haven't seen, anything in the way of a sentence that, more than a couple months at best. And I think any working class person, if you told them on the of a 6-month stay in jail, they were going to be $50 million richer, you'd see some interesting answers as to who would go into jail.
No doubt about that, Ed, but not all of these people are going to walk away with that kind of money. Some of these people, we're going to look back and that "Where Are They Now" series that people always do. Some of these folks are going to be destitute. Rudy Giuliani, you remember, he can't even pay his bills. So he definitely has not walked away with some big pot of gold. He is leveraged, filed bankruptcy. I mean, he's suffering. He's down in Mar-a-Lago, or was down in Mar-a-Lago, begging Trump for help. And let's not forget, Trump is not generous with his money. He's not trying to make anybody else rich. He's not trying to relieve the financial suffering of anyone, even those folks that have been most loyal to him. So it's really
only Michael Cohen for the extent that he needs to pay off a debt.
But what's funny even about Michael Cohen, some of the testimony that David Pecker gave in trial today was that Michael Cohen said, "Can you tell the boss to pay me? He's behind. He hasn't reimbursed me for that money for Stormy Daniels. And on top of it, I should get a bonus." So here's Michael Cohen again, putting his law license, on the line, putting his credibility, his reputation, his career, and he wasn't getting paid time. He's begging David Pecker to ask Donald Trump. He's enlisting the help of David Pecker to pressure Donald Trump to get him reimbursed money, which he got from mortgaging his home. So he wasn't rolling in dough being Donald Trump's personal lawyer or personal fixer. He had to mortgage his house to get this money. So it's all bizarre. When we come forward, we got to talk about what's happening in Tennessee. Isn't it a good idea to give teachers and teachers' aides guns? That's the question that a lot of Tennessee residents are asking today. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
call your senior Medicare patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
If your Medi-Cal is ending, Cover California is here to help. Cover California is a service from the state that helps you get affordable health insurance. In many cases, at no cost to you, just like with Medi-Cal. We have quality health plans and will help you every step of the way to get the one that works for you and your family. So if you're no longer eligible for Medi-Cal, check out Cover California. We'll keep you covered. Learn more at coveredca.com.
City of Los Angeles tenants, verify your emergency renters assistance program status today if you applied for the program. Tenants approved for rental assistance are protected from eviction for non-payment of rent through May 31st, 2024. And it's illegal under law for landlords to refuse rental assistance to you based on your source of income. Refusing assistance can be used as an affirmative defense in an eviction case. So check your application status now at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance.
We're back. Ed, 6 people were killed by a shooter in a Nashville school last year, and the Tennessee, not Texas, but Tennessee legislature's response to that is to pass a bill that would allow teachers and school staffers to carry concealed handguns, in schools. And the response to that was incredibly negative from thousands of people that flooded to the state capitol to oppose this legislation, including some of the people whose loved ones were killed in this horrific school shooting. Why is it that Republicans think that Americans want more guns, and particularly want people like teachers and aides carrying guns, when it's very clear that all the polls show that people want fewer guns on the streets? But they keep pushing this culture war issue of guns, and it's a losing issue like the abortion issue.
It would help if I unmuted. It's perplexing. Violence in schools is just an issue that the country has got to deal with. The idea that arming teachers is the way to go. We already have a shortage of teachers across this country. This is a country that hasn't valued the profession of teaching its next generation the way that it should. And then to ask that profession to, on top of that burden, to now get certified and carry and actually go through the process to carry a weapon doesn't make any sense at all. If we're looking at police officers and questioning when their judgment is used in taking of a life, then wow, it's just a Pandora's box of what's next. And it doesn't make any sense. I mean, that everything we just laid out there is the argument against it, and it doesn't make sense to push for it. But raise money from the NRA, they can raise their money on Second Amendment rights and stand up on it, and so they do. And it's just crazy that you actually push back on it.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I was actually this weekend talking to two teachers, talking about how difficult, as you said, it is to even be a teacher in the classroom. All of the, the things that they have to contend with: kids who come to school who are hungry, kids who don't have parents at home, kids who, are forced to care for their younger brothers and sisters and can't get their work done. Just all the, the things that happen, particularly when you're working in underserved communities. And then to think that on top of that, you're going to give a teacher a gun. So, teachers, we already see police officers, as you just said, they're having a hard enough time in terms of, shooting unarmed people who are not really posing threats to them. So now to say you're going to give guns to teachers, I can only imagine, some teacher gets spooked out or frightened by someone probably black and tall and male. And then there's another unarmed, teenage black kid getting shot by some very nervous teacher who misunderstood or misinterpreted their action. It's just a formula for disaster. And teachers themselves don't want guns. And with these school shooters, the police, as we've seen in Valdi, Texas and other places, they don't even want to run towards shooters, with assault weapons. So what is a teacher with a handgun going to do if there's a shooter on campus with some kind of assault weapon? It's just asking teachers to take on way too much responsibility that most teachers, I'm sure, didn't sign up for when they decided to be a school teacher. You have a kindergarten teacher with a gun. I mean, it's just
think about it. Think about it. If you were a teacher and you've had students through the years, and let's just say it's one of those students that were the perpetrator. And it's one thing to be an officer and maybe pull the trigger on someone you don't know. Imagine being a teacher and having to pull the trigger on somebody that you taught 2-3 years ago. That's not happening. And that's just silly to set that up.
Yeah, they're not going to do it. And it's just going to create this false sense of security. And police may even believe, well, we don't have to go in because the teachers all have guns. Who knows? It's just a horrible formula. And hopefully it won't pass in the other branch of government, or maybe the Tennessee governor will reject it. Real quickly, let's talk about abortion. They tried multiple times in Arizona to overturn this law to make sure that this 1864 abortion ban would not take effect. It was scheduled to take effect on June 8th. Republicans at least appear to be getting it, that they are losing on this issue of abortion and all of these restrictive laws by state courts and even some legislatures. It's going to create issues and problems for them at the ballot box in November. So after unsuccessfully trying multiple times, they were finally able in Arizona to, block this Supreme Court ruling. But is it too little too late, you think, for Republicans? Has the country already decided that Republicans are not the party to trust on the issue of abortion?
I think that's the case. But I also think it's the case that you've got to have something on the ballot, a ballot initiative or something on those lines, or in this case, a hot button issue before the election for it to matter, right? And I think the further away we get away from the Dobbs decision, that will be the case. I think Republicans are quite content to allow the judiciary to make these changes, and they'll stand up on it. But electorally, to your point, try to avoid it. And so what you're seeing in Arizona is a couple of Republicans trying to play it both ways in the hopes that they're not held accountable by the electorate. And I think that'll be the strategy for them, certainly through this November and probably for the next 2 years, where you'll start to see some moderation on some of the more extreme for those that are on the ballot. Now, everyone else is going to put judges in place to restrict reproductive rights for women.
Real quickly, Marjorie Taylor Greene seems like her days may be numbered as a darling of the Republican Party. One of the prominent GOP senators went on TV the other day and said he was sick of her. She was basically useless to the party, and they want her to sit down and shut up. She said she wanted to have Mike Johnson removed as speaker, and she didn't get a lot of traction with that. And if anything, she got backlash, and it looks like Republicans are realizing that candidates like her are bad for the party and the brand. Were you surprised by this assault by the GOP on Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I am. I listen. I'm no fan of hers. I think the QAnon brand of politics is as bad for this country as it gets. But I recognize her, Matt Gaetz, and others like her have an incredible hold on the House of Representatives, and thus have been able to sway a lot of elections. It's bold for a Republican senator to go against that group. It's refreshing to have some sort of return to normalcy for the Republican Party. I don't stand with any of them, but I'd rather deal with the older Republican than the Marjorie Taylor Greene set. But we'll see how that plays out. I suspect she's stronger and more durable.
Well, you're right. There once were people we called sane Republicans, people who you may disagree with on policy issues, but at least they were reasonable. They weren't just flamethrowers out to get their 15 minutes of fame on Fox News. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Ed, for spending this hour with me and helping us break down today's news. It has been a busy news day, and we're not done yet. Coming up in an hour or two, we're going to be talking about all of the legal cases that are in the news today, and they are many, with my legal panel, my expert legal eagles. We're going to be taking you to Law School 101, when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.